Good afternoon. My name is Serena Giussi, and I am an associate researcher at ISPI, and also I'm teaching international relations at the Sant'Anna School of Advanced Studies in Pisa. It's my great pleasure to coordinate today this very distinguished panel on heritage protection in the Mena region within the MED program at ISPI. Cultural heritage in the Mena region has been negatively affected by dramatic events, conflict, deliberate destruction by terrorist organization, systematic exploitation of historical sites by for illegal trafficking, and also it has been subject to vulnerability of the territory, like earthquake, fire. We have witnessed many of them. Cultural heritage has to be intended as tangible and intangible. Where intangible is more difficult to be protected because it is constantly reconstructed in a way, it's probably easier to deal with tangible heritage. And even if the destruction of monument in itself has to deal with memory, with identity, with power struggle. So even when we deal with tangible cultural heritage, we have to think what is behind that. There have been some symbolic destruction as Palmyra. I mention in Palmyra because since then there has been a sort of a process of securitization of monuments and cultural heritage, meaning that many international organizations and personalities, but also people have been very sensitive to the issue, have taken action, but it's very important that the attention on the topic is always very high. Today, I'm very glad to talk about these things with some very relevant, especially in the region where they are speakers. We start with Cecilia Piccioni, who is a Deputy Director General and Principal Director for Promotion of Italian Language and Culture at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then we will speak with Professor Zaki Aslan, who is a Director of International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property in Sharjah, that is in the Emirates, so at the regional office. And then we will have Professor Omar Mohammed, who is founder of the Mosul Iraq. And then we will have Professor Ellen Sader of the American University of Beirut, where she teaches history and archaeology. We decide to start speaking about what is meant by protection of cultural heritage, and especially what are the challenges, also taking into consideration the region where our speakers are based. And in the case of Cecilia Piccioni, who will start our roundtable, what is interesting is also to have a perspective of a country, of the Minister of Affairs of a country like Italy, that historically has been always very active in the field of cultural heritage protection. So it's my great pleasure to give the floor to Cecilia Piccioni. Thank you.
Thanks, Serena. It's a true honor for me to be here within this panel I'm definitely underqualified to speak about these issues together with such distinguished speakers, but maybe being the rookiest among them gives me the opportunity to state some basic facts. And what I want to start with is actually a sort of background thought to share. Indeed, the image of a cultural superpower is very often used to define Italy. And sometimes this image could look as a stereotype one, because it looks to me like an image that relates to a past grandeur, to an unparalleled artistic heritage. Nonetheless, while it is a mere fact that our artistic and cultural heritage is an essential element of our national identity, I'd like to underscore here that culture and creativity are a lively matter for Italy. They are not only a collection of wonderful works of art or precious UNESCO sites. It is much more than that. It is an approach, a lens through which we look at our present and try to shape our future. It is an heritage to be drawn on to face nowadays challenges, and this is a qualifying element that is very common to every expression of Italian creativity. This is why I think that it is more appropriate to define Italy as a creative superpower rather than a cultural superpower. But jokes aside, against this kind of backdrop, it is clear that cultural protection and cultural promotion are at the top of our agenda. They are really two of our priorities in foreign policy, as well as two of our main pillars of action. We strongly believe that the potential of cultural diplomacy is unparalleled in contributing to fostering dialogue, to promote inclusion, and in the end, help our globalized and more interconnected world to achieve peace and more prosperous life, which obviously is the main goal of our foreign policy. In this framework, cultural heritage is a priceless and irreplaceable legacy that belongs to humanity as a whole and not just to a single nation. And this is why the loss of its artifacts through theft, through damage, clandestine excavations, illicit transfer or trade, goes to the detriment of cultural heritage of all peoples of the world, and needs to be tackled at global level. Today, more than ever, the ongoing COVID-19 emergency calls for further strengthening international cooperation, as well as for an extensive rethinking and reshaping, I'd say, on sustainability and sharing of cultural heritage. The protection and safeguarding of cultural heritage, as you just mentioned, both tangible and intangible, are of paramount importance to our government. And to this end, we work at a double level. We work on two fronts. On the one hand, we work on the field, And on the other hand, we work at multilateral level. Within the multilateral fora, we are present. So with reference to the on the field engagement, it is no news to recall our commitment in the archaeological sector. We are strongly committed to uphold archaeological missions as a mean to enhance relations between states and in the perspective of cooperation in the cultural sector. These missions play a worldwide role in the training of local operators and to promoting technology transfers in many fields, such as archaeology, preservation and restoration of cultural heritage, in which Italy is a worldwide recognized leader. And obviously the MENA region is one of the areas where our action is more focused. Among the many missions we supported and we still support in the region, I have two very dear to my heart that are the one we carried in Libya, together with the Libyan partners at Elia Arisut, and the one that actually earned us the International Archaeological Discovery Prize Khaled Al-Assad for the discovery of 10 Assyrian rock reliefs in Iraq. These are two examples, I'd say quite well known, that give you the idea of the dimension of the size of our engagement. As of the multilateral fora, obviously Italy promotes dialogue and cooperation in the field of cultural heritage in order to face global challenges such as climate change, natural disasters, illicit trafficking, and lately COVID-19 pandemic. Our commitment to the protection of cultural heritage is long-standing, as some of our flagship initiatives show per se. I'm referring, for instance, to the resolution 2347 by the Security Council, the UN Security Council, which we promoted together with France, to ensure the protection of cultural goods and the contrast of the traffic and to contrast the trafficking that's long of cultural cultural goods in connection with the situations of crisis and actions committed by terrorists. It was the very first time, ever that the Security Council took a stand in that area, and I think it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself to highlight the kind of engagement we are carrying on. Obviously, there are also other important initiatives that can highlight the kind of engagement we are carrying on. One of which is the so-called Blue Helmets for Culture, an initiative that we launched in 2016 within the framework of United for Heritage, for the United for Heritage Coalition. And that is actually nowadays in the process of being reshaped, and most probably we will have some news about it in the next weeks. Another important tool I wish to underscore in this occasion is the Carabinieri unit's the Carabinieri unit contribution. Carabinieri are internationally renowned as one of the most knowledgeable military force for protecting artifacts and archaeological property around the world. And when we talk about artifacts and archaeological properties, we don't talk just about artifacts of Italian origins, but we talk about artifacts that are from of different origin. Since the 80s, the Carabinieri, the unit I'm talking about, is relying on a specific instrument in its investigation. It's quite a unique instrument. It's a database which actually gathers, collects and offers to those who work in the sector all the data related to illegally removed cultural artifacts. Through this database, it is possible to, let's say, really draw a picture of the history of a single artifact that has been illegally removed, cultural artifacts, obviously, that has been illegally removed from its original place. Obviously, we are engaged also in the green field. And together with the Blue Helmets, we decided lately to give birth to another specific team, a team that has been created under the auspices of our Ministry for Ecological Transition, and that it's the team of the so-called Green Helmets. It's a network of environmental experts which will provide technical assistance and training activities in the natural areas protected by UNESCO and in World Heritage Natural and Mixed Sites. I don't want to steal too much of your time to the discussion, and obviously I'd like maybe if we have time to elaborate a bit more on what are the highlights of our engagement within UNESCO, because you know that Italy is one of the main actors playing on the UNESCO scene, and also because we are the main contributor to the budget, which is not a minor detail. So I think this is the right time to leave the floor to the real experts, and I'm available for maybe another round of questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cecilia, very much. You well elaborate on what a nation state is doing. We have stressed that Italy has a great tradition in that respect. And I want to stress that you used right at the beginning the word inclusion, meaning that cultural heritage is also an instrument of cooperation and inclusion, something that we might look at in the second round of question. And also I want to stress that you mentioned many times the importance of multilateralism. So cultural heritage is something that belongs to a state but belongs to the humanity, and therefore is necessary for each one within state to cooperate with other organizations and with other states as well. So that was very much important, and you stressed the role of Italy also in the approval of very much important recent resolution in favor of culture protection. And I was very much interested also in what you mentioned about the ecological and green helmets, and if we have time, probably we have elaborate on that, because it might widen the very definition of what is cultural heritage. So thank you very much. And now I'm very glad to give the floor to Omar Mohammed. And I will ask him, how would you define cultural heritage protection, and what are the challenges you can see in your area and in general? Very much, thank you.
Thank you, Serena. And it's important to have listened to what Cecilia mentioned about how Italy sees the cultural heritage. It's kind of like ensuring and giving us the feeling of security about our cultural heritage. As you know, Mosul was one of the cities, the ancient cities, that was heavily damaged by the destruction of cultural heritage by terrorism, and as a result of the war. It's still very difficult to define cultural heritage. In fact, it's a definition that develops every day. It develops with the way the people see it, with the way the international community interact with it. But there is probably one important definition here, is that cultural heritage is global, and at the same time it's very local. It can have two dimensions at the same time. For the local concept, it might mean everything to the people where the cultural heritage exists, the tangible or intangible. It's about the identity, about the protection, about the social responsibility among the people. It's the most obvious representation of any community, but it's also global, and we have to always insist on the global dimension of cultural heritage, not only for the sake of protecting this cultural heritage, but it's also something very important. And here I am using a very important example. It's from my city, Mosul. The UNESCO UAE initiative, Revive the Spirit of Mosul. It might have been seen as an initiative just to reconstruct the cultural heritage sites, but as a Mosuli historian, I monitor and observe this initiative and the impact it is having on upgrading the status of a city from just a local city into an international one, taking the city from the local or the regional level into a global one. And that is exactly what such kind of international dimension of the cultural heritage can bring to cities. The more you work on enhancing the global dimension of ancient cities, the more you provide a protection, the more you provide stability to the concept of identity that is connected to the cultural heritage. But there is also something very important here, is that you make the communities, because cultural heritage is never representing only one community. It's always representing diversity, and you mentioned also the inclusion. The more you deal with the cultural heritage as a unique representation of the human production, the more you give the different communities the sense of stability about their cultural identity, because when they know, when they feel that their identity or their cultural heritage is protected, they will act responsibly. And that is the, in my opinion, that is the important social and economical as well, economical definition of the cultural heritage. It is something important to always explore, is how can we economize the cultural heritage? Because you need the communities to also feel that they are benefiting from the existence of this cultural heritage, to find mechanisms of protection. As you probably all know, one of the main problems of the cultural heritage is that it's vulnerable. It can be attacked at any moment. It can be destroyed. It can be targeted. It's one of the most vulnerable things on this earth, because when they attack cultural heritage, they know what they are doing. They are attacking the very core principle of identities. Therefore, we need to enhance the mechanisms of protection by economizing this cultural heritage, by making the people feeling that their cultural heritage can not only provide them with identity stability, but also economical prosperity and development. And that's exactly the principle of, or at least how I see it as a Mosuli, the principle of Revive the Spirit of Mosul is, beside, as I said, rebuilding the cultural heritage, it is giving back the city of Mosul the role that it has always played in the history as a city that connects between many different dimensions, but it's also a global city. And that's in my opinion how we should treat the cultural heritage, and also every place, every country or city. Yes, it is very local, but we have always to remember that it's also global. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omar, and thank you for having elaborate on the concept of cultural heritage protection. You also stress the vulnerability of all this cultural heritage. And I found particularly interesting what you were saying about the reconstruction, how the reconstruction process can be transformative for the whole area under many aspects. And in my view, this is extremely relevant, how cultural heritage, even when it's destroyed and need to be repaired or need to be reconstructed, still we have some challenge to, let me say, to use it for transform the area in which a monument or whatever was based. And also you mentioned the question of stability, that is also quite interesting from a political point of view. It would be yes, very interesting to think about stability and cultural heritage. But now I give the floor to Professor Zaki Aslan. So the question for you is the same. What is cultural heritage protection, and what are the challenges linked to it? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giusti, and thank you for inviting me. I just want to first thank ISPI School and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I think it's not strange that this initiative comes from Italy, where our headquarters actually exist. So I'm actually here sitting in Sharjah as a regional office covering the Mena region. And in fact, Italy was, I have to mention this before I start, was the driving force behind establishing a program for the Arab region that was in evolution and moved from a program to a regional office for ICCROM. So thanks to Italy for supporting ICCROM all throughout these years. Since 2003, when I started what was called the ATHAR program for the Levant region at the beginning, and now we are serving all the MENA region from Morocco to the Gulf. Well, when it comes to cultural heritage, and thank you, Ms. Giusti, for drawing the attention to the fact that cultural heritage ranges from tangible to intangible, movable and immovable. And we at ICCROM have been addressing the protection as such and the promotion of cultural heritage since our inception in Italy in 1950s. Of course, the notion of cultural heritage has developed, and we've been trying to address the trends as we see the cultural heritage field has been developed. When it comes to the MENA region, the protection of cultural heritage has been a major challenge for us here at the regional office. We've been addressing what we are usually known for, institutional capacity building, but we look at institutional capacity building in a more holistic sense. So it's a tool, of course, it's an instrument if you want. And through this holistic approach of capacity building, we try to address various audiences. So essentially, we work with professionals working in the field, and the idea is to work with leaders, have especially on the national level, to have leaders who can be empowered to protect their cultural heritage, which has been under threat, especially in the past few years, the past decade, I should say, due to conflicts in many parts of the region. So we've been involved in many countries, in Libya, in Iraq, recently with the Mosul project, in Yemen, and we hope that we could also help the Syrians. We worked, in fact, through UNESCO program with the EU, also to help the Syrian professionals as well. The other idea that we always try to look at is this fact that we need to address policymakers and influence policies, and especially with the institutional conditions that we have here in the region. We found it quite important to look into the legal and institutional frameworks in the region. We have held several workshops in this area to address this, how to enforce the law, how we improve the law and legislation, especially when we talk about issues like illicit trafficking and the like. But also we look into communities, and especially the youth. When we develop our training, we try to address the youth, we try to work with schools, and our outreach and advocacy work is we find important, especially when we looked at the needs assessment since I mentioned 2003, how important it is to look into the appropriation of heritage to the people of the region, and to raise the awareness and to make sure that, you know, this heritage is really part of their identity and their livelihoods when we talk about cities, for example. More than that, in fact, we were trying to look into networking and see how we could improve collaboration and cooperation among the countries in the region, but also with international entities such as the government of Italy, who has been generous with us in the past years to see how we could help through multilateral work that we have to benefit the countries concerned. But also we have in the center of all this some field projects, like pilot projects, where we address areas. I mentioned the Mosul project, the capacity building project that Omar has just mentioned. We look into issues related to recovery nowadays. I use the word recovery better than reconstruction, because when we talk about recovery, we also talk about the people who live in the city. It's not only the physical elements within a city. So this is something that we have been developing in terms of approaches, how we work on this. We have developed some methodologies and tried to embed this in our capacity building work. One good example when we talk about field projects that we lately implemented was in Sudan. Omar mentioned, you know, how you have in places some different communities. In the case of Sudan, in Darfur, there were different tribes, and how heritage was a driving force and has a central role to bring people together at museums, which become cultural hubs for people to meet, celebrate their cultural heritage, in this case, the museums, the collections, but also their intangible heritage. So these museums that we were involved in, thanks to the British Protection Fund, and for that project, we tried to bring people together to celebrate their heritage, their shared heritage, and I'm so proud that we achieved a lot through this project. Now it's being continued through the Aleph Foundation, which is also an alliance between the Emirates and France. So this is in a nutshell, I mean, the challenges that we have and how we've been trying to address them. There are many other examples that I can give. When I talked about leadership and national leaders and the cascading effect, we now also have a master's degree program. We try to address language barrier. We try to do publications in Arabic as well. And we try to bring people together to also exchange, facilitate exchange, and make sure that they learn together and they implement projects when they go back to their home country. So this is one example. Also, we have other initiatives, but I can maybe mention them later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for explaining us already how you're working. And I think it was quite useful to know that you have program for leader and to empower leaders. And then I want to stress another thing, the concept of recovery that you were mentioning, that is can be used instead of reconstruction when also you include the local community. And I think you and Omar both stressed the question of community, how community should be engaged and involved in whatever is concerned by cultural heritage protection. And also, I want to stress the new role of museum. There is a quite lively debate, especially after the pandemics, how museums should develop, and much of the debate is about museums should be available for a local community, and local community should profit more from museum, which also need to transform to be something different than just hosting a collection of something. They probably should be more interactive. It happened to me to listen to the director of the museum in Turin, the Egyptian Museum, and he really emphasized this new role for museum, which might also become a point of meeting all local people for kids, for education, but also as a center of research. And I found this possibility really very, very interesting and promising. Now I give the floor to Professor Hélène Sader, who is based in Lebanon. So I think she will tell us what is the perspective on cultural heritage from that point of view, taking into consideration that Lebanon has known wars, but also recently, almost 1 year ago, there was this dramatic explosion at the port. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serena, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this panel. Well, answering the question that you asked us at the beginning, first of all, why to protect cultural heritage? Well, I think the most important issue here is to protect the past of a population, of a country, of a nation. And it is important to protect cultural heritage because it is the memory of the people, and mainly also to protect the information that is included in the cultural heritage. To protect archaeological sites, it means to protect all the information that these sites can give us about the past, about the history of a people, of a region at a certain period of time. So protecting the cultural heritage is also protecting examples of the diversity of a culture. And in a country with diverse cultures, you have to have examples also, and study the all these cultures that came together to form the the culture and the the history of a certain people. Cultural heritage in general encompasses the particular heritages of the various let's say groups or regions, etc., to make it as a whole. So I think this is very useful for the identity, for the cohesion of a society, to protect the cultural heritage, because abusing it is abusing also the past of a people. Now, in Lebanon in particular, and I think it is not also only specific to Lebanon, cultural heritage, is facing several challenges. Its protection is facing several challenges. The first one is, I would say, the lack of interest on the part of the public authorities, or at least this is at the bottom of the list of the priorities of the public authorities. There is lack of financial means and lack of professional, means. So this is one basic handicap, I would say, one basic challenge. We have to inform the people. We have to inform, to awaken, to raise interest and awareness among the people. This is one very important issue, because the challenges that Lebanese heritage is facing is something endemic that started, 2 centuries ago, with the looting of archaeological artifacts, with the looting of archaeological sites, which has not stopped until this day. Looting goes on. The law is there to protect it, but nobody implements the law. So we are facing serious challenges coming from collecting. Also, we have several people who love to collect artifacts. Collectors, and collection of archaeological artifacts have always been, in Lebanon, a sign of intellectual, knowledge. We know the value of these things, so we want to have them in our living room. This is not how things go, and this is not how one protects heritage. And they always, buy these artifacts with the pretext that they are rescuing them, that they are saving them. So this is another challenge, to tell the people that an artifact outside its archaeological context means nothing. You can have a fake, you can have a counterfeit of this. It's the same. It looks exactly the same. The meaning of an artifact is what it tells us, about the past. So these are, in my opinion, the most important challenges that archaeological heritage or cultural heritage, is facing. For example, the historical buildings in Lebanon, the traditional houses, all this, this heritage that made, Lebanon what it is today, is disappearing because of not only of lack of maintenance, but also because of greed. People want to sell these parcels because they cost a lot of money to build new buildings. So there is, how shall I say, sort of neglect of the importance of cultural heritage. And people are more interested in making, money out of some archaeological sites, rather than keeping them for the posterity, let's say. So in Lebanon, we have also a major challenge, which is anarchic urbanization. Urbanization is all over the place. It has destroyed several sites. It has destroyed not only archaeological sites, it has destroyed the landscape. It has destroyed, the natural heritage of the country. And all these issues are, are there. There is very little done to, to find solutions, to protect them, because the state in which the country is, you need the sort of stability, political, prosperity, in order to have the means and the time to dedicate to the protection of cultural heritage. So in my opinion, we have a lot to do We have a lot to invest in the education of the people, and mainly in that of our, politicians, I would say, because they are the ones at the end of the day that hold the reins of the finances, and they are the ones who can decide to finance projects in this, in this respect. So this is what I think, answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Helen. And this is very in line with what Zaki said about the importance of training and education, the leadership. So the people actually who take decisions. So you also talk about the lack of professionals. So this is another item on which probably we should work, and is rightly dealing with training and having the instrument to protect the cultural heritage. And I was also quite impressed by the fact that you say there is a lack of interest in institution, which might also depend on a financial reason, which is quite understandable in some countries that have, economic problem right now. And now the second question I would ask you, but many of you have already actually answered, but if you can probably quote a very small example, is how to act for the protection of cultural heritage. I make an exception because I know that Cecilia needs to leave us 10 minutes before the end because she has another commitment actually in a university, so I think she will speak to an academic public. I have an exception because I received a very specific question for you. So I would ask you that question instead of the general one. And
hopefully
Cecilia,
it's an easy one.
Yeah, okay. I just read it. Would engaging local community in vulnerable MENA countries, such as Syria, Iraq, Yemen, be a feasible strategy to protect heritage sites? How should this involvement be pursued? And which incentive could be provided to ensure mutual benefit on heritage protection? So it's about the involvement of engagement of local community, and this deals with one of the issues we have already mentioned. So is it feasible? Is it possible to engage local community? How can we do it in countries like Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, where we know that have been affected or still are by war and the action of terrorist organizations? Thank you, Cecilia.
No, thanks a lot, and I wish at the beginning to thank all the panelists that followed me, because it was very enlightening. I actually need to have a one-on-one conversation with each one of them, because I can learn a lot. Jokes aside, it is feasible, and it is actually one of the guidelines we try to keep always in our minds when we launch new missions. Let me give you an example. It's a very personal example, because when I was posted in Hanoi as ambassador, I had the fortune to travel extensively around the country before the pandemic struck. So I had the opportunity to visit some sites which are not, huge or incredibly structured examples of what Italy can do when we have this kind of missions deployed on the field, because Vietnam, it's not wasn't exactly one of our top priorities back in the 70s and the 80s, when this kind of work has been performed, and I'm going to tell you what kind of work. I visited the site of Mison, which is a very beautiful place on the Vietnamese coast, and there we had archaeological mission from Fondazione Clerici of Politecnico di Milano, who that actually restored this ancient Cham historic site. Why am I mentioning this? Because right after I arrived, we launched a program of in partnership with the Vietnamese authorities and basically with the Vietnamese Minister of Education to establish a specific course for training Vietnamese in the restoration field right in that area. It was a course that was activated at high school level, and then obviously it was supposed to be followed by university course to be activated at the Da Nang University, just to train the local people to work in that area. I wanted to mention this because obviously we are talking today about the Mena region. So I didn't touch upon a specific issue that it's very dear to my heart as I was posted in Asia, which is the true asset that having these missions represent when you are in remote countries and difficult areas. MENA region for Italy is like they are our neighbor. So we are there. It took us nothing to reach the countries of the region. But when you think of Myanmar, for instance, when you think of Myanmar and you think of what we have done there, we were able to restore such remote sites together with the community. Actually, we fully engaged with the community there, and that missions were maybe the best embassy, the best Italian embassy we had in Myanmar at that time. Not because we didn't have an embassy and not because our colleagues weren't good enough. But what I'm saying is that sometimes through this kind of work, you really can make the difference, engaging the local people and bringing Italy and our heritage. And when I say heritage, I don't mean just cultural. I mean value heritage, I mean intangible heritage. So not just our ability to restore a site. It was really something that's made me very aware of the importance of keeping this kind of dialogues kicking and alive at different latitudes, because sometimes these are the only contacts the local people have with a very far away country like Italy, not? And that's why I said I didn't mention this. I didn't tackle this issue before because we were supposed to talk about MENA region in particular. But think of this, because this is really something very important. This is something that gives to the cultural heritage preservation effort an additional content, an additional mission, I'd say.
Okay, Cecilia, thank you very much. I know that you have to go, so thank you once more for being with us, and we keep in touch with you and with the rest.
Thank you all, and sorry once again.
Okay, thank you, Cecilia.
Bye.
And now I will give the floor just for a few minutes to Omar, if you want to add an example on how to protect cultural heritage from your perspective?
It's I think many countries and organizations haven't answered this question yet, but I will try to give my own opinion based on what we have seen from the recent destruction that happened. There are many lessons that we can learn from that destruction. Is that, and it's also related to the previous question. I believe that the protection of cultural heritage in any place comes first from the way people and communities engage with their own cultural heritage. One of the problems that we faced in Mosul, and we still face in Iraq, is the lack of knowledge of what do we have as cultural heritage in our countries. What does it mean to us? Do we teach it in schools? Do we teach it in universities? In the past, Mosul and Iraq used to have this kind of school trips. They would take children to historical sites. This is one of the ways to protect the cultural heritage, is by making the people responsible for its own protection. But beside that, and given that such kind of destruction might be prevented if the people and the government, the authorities, etc., work on its protection, there is still something that cannot be solved from the side of the communities, as Dr. Zaki Aslan mentioned, is that the illicit trafficking of artifacts, one, and second is the problem of the already looted artifacts and that they are being exhibited in different museums. We have many cases of artifacts that are not going to return back to their original place of origin. How can we protect them? The only way to protect them is to enhance the policies related to the cultural heritage internationally. And that's also related to when I said we have to always encourage local communities to believe in the global dimension of their cultural heritage, and that both can work together. There is also something more important and more urgently needed now, is it's very important to integrate in the schools and in the curriculum of the schools more courses on cultural heritage, rather than just teaching history. We need to teach the tangible and intangible cultural heritage in schools, to teach the children from their early age about this cultural heritage, to give it more visibility and to make it more active in our daily life. This way we can ensure the safety and the protection of that cultural heritage. There is also something important here. We know that there are already existing treaties and agreements for the protection of cultural heritage since the old ones from Brussels, from Paris, from Abu Dhabi, the one in 2016. We still need more clear language in such kind of treaties between countries on the protection of the cultural heritage. The recent one from the EU was very important about how cultural heritage can play a role in peace building, but still there is a problem in the language when such kind of treaties are being made. And by that I mean, is it just about protecting the cultural heritage in the West, or is it about protecting the cultural heritage when it gets out of the its original place? Is it about protecting cultural heritage or safeguarding it after it gets destroyed? We still don't have clear mechanisms of how to prevent the destruction of the cultural heritage. Therefore, we need, and we hope from the policymakers, from organizations such as the one represented by Dr. Zaki Aslan, to work more on a much more inclusive language when it comes to the protection of the cultural heritage. We know it plays an important role in peace building, but there should be an equal representation of this cultural heritage, as I said. Museums are also very important tools here to protect the cultural heritage. The example of Sudan is very important here. We hope that Mosul Museum is gonna reopen, and that also plays a role in the recovery and the rehabilitation of Mosul. However, we still need more and more efforts that follows up the cultural heritage sites after they are being reconstructed. It's not just finishing the building and it's built. No, we need more work, more, as you said, engagement of the local communities and giving the local communities more role in protecting their cultural heritage. I think this question will always be open, and it will always needs more conversations and debates between policymakers, organizations, and scholars, as well as grassroots. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Omar. And in the meantime, you also answer a question, because that was about the museum and you already say something. Just a question. In the chat, I can say that someone is asking me if the pandemic has increased the illegal trafficking of cultural heritage, of artifacts. What is your perception from there?
Is this a question to me? Well, I think.
Since you mentioned illegal trafficking, I was asking you immediately.
I think Dr. Zaki Aslan can answer better than I.
Okay, fine.
But it's probably indicated in the recent report from Athar that the pandemic has actually increased the illicit trafficking.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then, so the floor is to Zaki.
Thank you. I don't want to take much time. I want to use keywords practically, and maybe give a few examples. I think the way forward to answer this question is also related to how we could expand our partnerships. I think when we talk about communities, there is a role to civil societies that we should always try to see how it can be integrated in the work that we have with official institutions and also the professionals. Universities have a major role, as already mentioned, in education. How we integrate heritage in university school curricula is quite important. We developed actually many years ago a school guide for teachers, how to introduce heritage in school activities. So the youth, the keyword here is the youth. The youth is the future, and I think we need to work on that quite. If we think about the future and if we think about how much youth exists in the world, vis-a-vis, the number of population that we have, if we search Google, we will find that the youth would provide an important base to work with. Also, I think one of the main aspects that when it comes to sustainability, this keyword of sustainability, how we sustain efforts that have been, invested in, especially by international organizations and also international cooperations. I think we need to look into to really have a profound understanding of the local context. That is really important. So how we could ensure that the future is with the future leaders in the countries concerned, how we could provide incentives for them And I think we cannot look at that in isolation without looking into the broader picture. And I mentioned the civil society organizations. The last keyword I want to use is the issue of documentation, because I think documentation has been really a major challenge. You know, we have lost a lot of heritage, being it through the illicit trafficking or destruction of sites and cities. I think documentation, we've been talking about this for many, I don't know, maybe perhaps at each meeting we talk about inventories, but there hasn't been substantial initiatives to make this you know, effective. We lately had some training in partnership with Interpol to also address, for example, police units, what they call the police specialized units, how they can also be familiar with the heritage profession and how they can also help in the protection, especially when it comes to illicit trafficking in this case. But I think we need to look at the broader perspective, the customs, the army when it comes to destruction in wars, etc. So I think these are just key headlines, if you want, which we can think about for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your keywords. And if you don't mind, Elena, I have a question from the public. And it's in fact about archaeological mission and security, how the security of researcher can be assured in archaeological mission in unstable country where there is a risk for the people. What do you think?
There is no insurance for that, you know. Instability hits everyone. It hits, you know, foreign missions as it hits the locals. So nobody can guarantee the security. You cannot have the army protect each site, or even if they are there, if there is shelling or if there is, you know, a war situation, an armed conflict, nobody can be protected. They are protected if the country is a stable country, if the country is safe, then they are naturally protected, you know, like all of us. You know, locals and foreigners are protected exactly in the same way by the stability in a country. So I don't think there is anything specific to protect, you know. Usually all the foreign missions in Lebanon inform their embassies. So they all know who is coming and they have their coordinates, and they are aware of their presence. And in case there is any problem, we can inform the embassy, you know, and the embassy can take some measures. But normally on site, there is absolutely no need for a special security for foreign missions working in the country. So this is what I see. I mean, I have had several, you know, foreign colleagues working in Lebanon with me, and we never had special, you know, measures to protect them.
Yeah, I think there are some practices in every country that dealing with a foreign mission, archaeological foreign mission, but obviously. When you have a conflict and a war, then it's different, and you need another kind of protection. And usually, I think these missions are interrupted and they cannot work as usual.
Yeah, this is because of, you know, some countries do not deliver permits of excavation in times of instability because they cannot, you know, control the work. And this has, you know, this is normal procedure, I would say, in countries where there is instability. In Lebanon, during the armed conflict, the civil war, no permits were issued to any, you know, foreign mission, not even to the local people. So everything stopped during that time because of the impossibility to protect or to secure work and to secure also the excavated remains, because looting becomes, you know, even increases in times of instability. So I think This is normal. I mean, all the two colleagues have mentioned everything that one can think of, you know, for protecting the cultural heritage. You know, with the fear of sounding, you know, more cynical, I would say it's easier to be said than to be done most of the time. It's not, I mean, when you are faced with the reality, it needs a lot of will, a lot of means, a lot of perseverance, a lot of, you know, long-term efforts to reach some success. It is not easy. This is what I want to stress. It is difficult, and it takes a lot of, I would say, public as well as private initiatives to protect the cultural heritage of a country. It is not a single, you know, undertaking, I would say.
Thank you, Aslan. So we can say that there are many ways to protect. We have discussed them today, but as Aslan was stressing, it's very difficult then to put in place, especially in some difficult contexts for war, but also for lack of expertise and for lack of money as well, because you need money to do this kind of intervention. I see that there are still many questions from the public, but unfortunately we don't have any more time. So my promise and my engagement is to organize very soon another seminar on probably some specific topic which were emerging today in today's discussion. So this is my promise in thanking all of you for taking part in the seminar. For me, it was very, very interesting. I learned a lot, and I think this is a very good. I hope our public enjoy and learn a lot as well. So thank you again, and I hope to have the occasion to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe.
Thank you, Serena.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Ciao.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.